So taking a look at our calendar real quick, I told you we were behind in this class. We don't have very much left. We're on the 17th. The last day is going to be the 24th. And what I tend to do in this class is the very, very last day of class, since that's the day that your project is due, we don't tend to have class. So I've worked it out a little bit this weekend, and I think I've kind of condensed some things down, and I might can make it, but I can't guarantee that we can make it. So we're going to try to cover basically software installation today. And then on the 22nd, we'll probably be hitting how to create users on the system with some additional stuff in it. So if I can make it through both of those lectures kind of in one lecture each there, then on the 24th, we will try to not have that class, but I can't promise anything. But also I wanted to point out that you've got until the 24th to get that semester project done. So keep that in mind. And because of kind of what little time, and I know that the grad students and anybody that wants the bonus for the MariaDB server, if you don't know how to install that software, then I want to go ahead and cover it. So we're skipping a lecture ahead. This is going to be module 18 instead of 17. We'll come back to 17. So today is going to be covering that software installation. Okay, so for Linux, software installation is more referred to as package management. Now, there are two ways. I kind of break them up into a high level and a low level. The low level is the original method. And then, of course, we'll hit the high level here, which is so much better. And actually, if I can fit it in, I'll tell you a story about my experience that I had in college. But before we get into all of that, you can kind of see under this low level, we have two different methods, RPM and DPKG. So we'll be covering DPKG because that is for Debian, Ubuntu, anything that is Debian based is going to use these DPKG command right here, and it manages the .dev packages. But there are two major distributions out there, and that is kind of Red Hat and then Debian. Red Hat uses RPMs instead of the .dev packages. Now, once you learn one, it's pretty easy to pick up. I mean, the concepts are all the same, but the commands are all different there. So you can see right here, both of them install, verify, and then queries the status of packages there. So under this old method, you are basically going to be going out to the internet and finding the actual piece of software that you want and then downloading it from the internet. And then you're going to have to manually install that. So as you can see with the DPKG, you should be downloading packages that have that extension of .deb. And then to install it, you just use the command -- install, and then give the argument here at the end of whatever package name that is. And of course, we can remove it. And then -L is going to give us a list of it. And then let's just dive in here so you can kind of see the difference of those two. So if I did DPKG, let me make that larger, not that large. And we did -- oh, sorry, it's, I've done lost it. Is it -L or is it -L? I get the two confused. Close that out. -L, yeah. So that's going to give us a list of all these packages right here. So this is just kind of with no argument. If we want to give it an argument, we could go ahead and say HTOP is one of them that's on here. Actually, it's not on here. So let's do sudo. That for surely will be on here. So now you can see this is kind of the output that you get. We'll take a look at what all this means here in a second. But you can kind of see by default, you're going to get all this header information. And then kind of a trick, if you don't want all that header information, then you could just pipe this to grep right there. And then you're going to get just the single line itself right there, or no, sorry, right here of that file name right there. So depending on what you want back. All right, so now how do we actually interpret this? So you can kind of see at the top here, we have these keys. And the way to read it is the desired right here is kind of this line right here. And then you can see if you have a -I, that -I corresponds to install. So this is, it's marked to be installed. Doesn't mean that it is installed. The actual status is where we know if it is or is not installed. So you can kind of see, we connect that down here. then the status actually is installed. And then there's another one right here. Of course, this doesn't have any type of error. And then we have, you know, the name, which kind of corresponds down here. So that's kind of how you read that. I think only me doing it on purpose have I ever encountered where it doesn't have the double I, but the double I is what you want to see. If you see the double I, then it's desired and it's actually installed. So you should be good to go on that. Now, the high level. Now, this is where you actually want to install your software. So you can see, once again, we got Red Hat, and then up here is apt. So apt is the Debian version, and then under Red Hat, we kind of have this Red Hat network. That's kind of their paid version that they have. And Red Hat is, once you work in industry, a lot of times you're going to encounter Red Hat because it comes with support. Now, Ubuntu comes with support. It's just Red Hat kind of has the market on that. But Debian is getting pretty popular with having or sorry, not Debian, but Ubuntu is getting pretty popular in the industry as well. But under the two, you can see the kind of two competing was apt and yum. The first iteration of apt was actually more considered apt-get. Every command ended with a dash, but it's been updated where now it's simply apt. We'll kind of see that here in a second, some of the old variations of it. And then we had yum. Yum, I hated yum when I had to use it. I didn't like its interface. But now yum, as you can see, the naming is all funny right here. So this is kind of the free version that's under Red Hat, and it stands for that Yellow Dog Update or Modified. Then you got DNF, which stands for the Dandified Yellow Dog Update or Modified. So you got to love those names. But DNF, it actually has a really nice user interface, and it's very enjoyable to use. So if you have that, again, you learn one, you can pick up the other one really, really quick. You just got to change some of the commands there. Now, as you can see, Debian actually can install RPMs, which is why that it's considered one of the most universal standard for, distributing your software. Now that has changed, and unfortunately I haven't updated my coverage, so I just talk about it in here. Has anybody heard of Flatpak or Snap before? Okay, maybe one or two in here. So the way this works is when you needed to install software, if you're on a Red Hat system, then if you're the guy that's creating the software, then you have to actually package it for the Red Hat system, so for Yum. And then if you wanted it to be distributed on Debian system, you'd have to package a thing for app. So it's creating double the work for the same piece of software, right? So then somebody thought, oh, it'd be really, really cool if there was a universal way to actually install software. So the way that they decided to do this, since the systems are different, how about we create basically a virtual environment, a VM? And then all we have to do is create the software package that is for that VM. So if we're on Red Hat, we'd have a software package that you could download that takes all of that software. So only the person that maintains, so in this case, we'll use Snap. So Snap's one of them. So the guy created Snap, it's this virtual environment. And then the one person that maintains Snap would have to worry about distributing it for app and distributing for Red Hat and whatever variation there is that's out there. Then all of the other people that's creating their programs, all they have to do is create their program for Snap. And now we have a universal software distribution. Well, so many people thought that this was such a great idea that they all just developed their own. So now you've got Snap by Debian, you've got Flatpak by Red Hat, and then you've got other distributions out there as well. It's just these two are the most widely distributed, Flatpak and Snap. So now, if you want your software everywhere, the developers are developing for app, they're developing for Red Hat, they're developing for Snap, and they're developing for Flatpak and whatever else that's out there. So it didn't really fix the problem. We don't know who's going to win. No one has won yet. Matter of fact, if you download the full GUI version of Ubuntu, the app store that's in that, it's no longer apt, A-P-T. It's actually the Snap version that's of it. Now, it's been a few years since I've kind of investigated all this, so I'm sure it's a whole lot better. I actually still prefer apt as the last time I investigated because Snap was new. and app's been around forever. So therefore there was just way more software that was on apt. And then when I would search for Snap, I wouldn't find near as much, but everything that was on Snap was on apt. So I tend to like the apt, but I'm sure it's gotten way better since then.
Like the Ubuntu GUI for installing software never works for me.
Never works.
Always have to go back to terminal and like write commands.
Okay, the last time I did it, it was horrible. It used to be really, really good when it was apt, but once they switched over to Snap, I didn't like using it anyway because I liked the terminal a lot better, but I just quit using it altogether because it was terrible. So maybe it's still terrible. I don't know, but it is kind of a funny story in the fact that they tried to make something universal. Instead, they just wind up creating more work for everybody in the end. So now it could be that some people develop for Snap, some people develop for Flatpak. So you would have to, but understand that Flatpak works on Debian and Red Hat or any other system, and then Snap as well. So you can put these on there and then use that. Matter of fact, there's lots of other even app stores that you can download. Cargo is one of them. Cargo is, I'll get it. Cargo is if you like Rust, everything that is on Cargo is written in Rust. So it's kind of like the Rust app store. If y'all want to install that, I actually have it on my system in there because they tend to rewrite a lot of the same utilities that are in Linux, and they rewrite it in Rust, and it's just all prettier and kind of more modern there, but kind of outside the scope of this class. Okay, so the way that this all works is on your Linux system, there's going to be a file in here, and this file is a repository. Actually, the file in particular is pointers to repositories. So it's basically web addresses. So when you get on your system, we'll use apt as our example. You could do apt update, and then it's going to read that text document. And then all of those are web addresses to those repositories. Then it goes out there and looks at what software is available. And then it downloads a local cache copy of that software. So therefore now it can compare and see, okay, there's software out there that you don't have. So here's where you can find it. Or you have this software version and it's not up to date. So now it knows that you need to actually update your local software to kind of match that newer version that's out there. So all of this is manual. We have to do that. Of course, it could be automated if you make your system do that. But in order to kind of start this process, we need to look at some of these commands. And these commands will allow us to see what type of systems we are on. These first two have been around kind of forever. These last two, they only work on systemd systems. So luckily now, all of these commands work for us. This right here only works if your system is init, or sorry, it will work for init and it works on systemd systems. But if you have a init system, then these don't work right here. So you have to have systemd in order for these bottom two to work. But, and you still have to know them because there are some distributions that still hate, like they don't want systemd whatsoever. So they didn't kind of move to that newer one. So you would need to know these commands. But again, everything that works in a init will work on a systemd system there. So let's take a look at the output on these. So if we do lsb_release -a will get us the most information that you can see right here. Ubuntu, here's the version that we're on. And then here's actually the code name, which is pretty nice. We could use cat and issues, and then you get a lot less information right here. This is just a file that we're catting out, and that's what's in her. So we don't get the code name, but at least we get the version, so we could use that. And then if you're on the systemd, then we could cat out etc os-release. And this one is actually the best. It gives you the most information out of it, although it's a little bit kind of harder to read, but still yet it doesn't give us the code name. That's kind of the default, but it does give you these URLs so you can find some more information. So it's really good to know all of these. And then to be honest, the one that is kind of the, I guess the least useful is the newest command. It's really pretty right here, but it doesn't give us the code name or anything like that. One thing that it does is it gives us the kernel, and you can actually verify that we're working kind of in a container, and we're using the WSL2 version of a Linux kernel, not the actual full-blown kernel there. So with that information, what we kind of need to memorize here is this part right here that we want to know the actual Ubuntu version and then that code name. So we'll try to remember that. Now, you can obviously do all of this inside the terminal, but if you want to make it a little bit easier on yourself, if you're trying to do research, is you can actually go to their website. They have all of that, and it's a whole lot easier to read here. So I'm going to go ahead and click. Actually, I'm going to click out here and get to the website here. Now, before we look at that, so in this, it's going to be a list of software, and we can actually pick what distribution we have. So that way, if we know that this piece of software that we want to download works exactly for our system, that's kind of where that code name or the 22, the version number, comes into play. Now, we're going to see lots of these packages, but note that there's a thing called these dummy packages, and these dummy packages are really, really nice. So the dummy packages are, it's a name that will have a list of software in that. So you can kind of see if you wanted to get the known desktop environment. Now, that is a whole lot of different files. So therefore, you don't have to go out there and figure out, okay, I want this font, I want these icons, I want this terminal, I want this file browser. You don't have to do all of that. You could simply just type in, I want the known desktop environment. It's going to have all of that software in there. And then you just run one install command, boom, it downloads it all for you. So really, really, really nice there. Now let's take a look at our website, wherever it went. There it went. All right, so you could go down here and kind of select which one you have, but if you're just doing a search, I like to actually search for things here. So if we take a look at it, I think I had the Noble, so we can type in the Noble and then any software package. So we're doing what, MariaDB. So now I can hit search on that. And then we can, there's going to be a lot that is actually returned right here, but we're looking for the server edition. So if I just type in server and flip through here, well, we'll just scroll through it. And now you can see it's in the actual name right here. So package MariaDB server. So you're looking for the things that start with package and then the actual name. And now you can see in here, we have this right here, MariaDB server, that's 10.5, and we got this core, but the 10.5 is actually the newest version. So what's cool about this, if I click on here, you can actually see somewhere in here, this where it actually said meta package. Did they change that on me? Maybe they did. Anyway, if you now, I don't have to actually know what the newest version of it is out there. Of course, here's the actual version that it's hitting. All I have to remember is that MariaDB server, and then it's going to go ahead and take care of all this. Now, a real quick story from my past. So I took an operating systems class when I was in college many years ago. And we went over Windows and we went over Mac, and the last thing was Linux. And so as our final project in there, the professor gave us this list of software, and we had to choose one of those. And then we had to get a physical computer and then install that software, bring the computer to class and hook it up to the projector, and then do a presentation over the, our installation of the software package. So I was completely ignorant. Did not know what I was doing, and I looked at the list, and one of the things that was left was a program called Wine. Now, Wine allows you to run Windows application within Linux. So it's basically a virtual environment that mimics Windows and then does kind of all the translation for Linux. And of course, at the time, one of the things that I liked to do was I was playing Warcraft 3, I think it was. And I was like, it'd be really cool to get Warcraft 3 working in Wine, which was the most stupidest idea you could ever come up with when it comes to getting something to work in Linux. Like, why not Notepad? That would have been a great idea, right? Pretty simple. No, I choose Warcraft. So the first thing I did was I went out and then here, let me take a step back. So my professor at the time, apt was available. If I can remember right, it was pretty new though. So I don't know if it just wasn't good, or was it that the professor just didn't, like me, didn't update his stuff like I haven't updated for Flatpak. I don't know what it was. It could be that he was really hardcore. So I'm thinking more it was hardcore and he didn't want us to take the easy way out. So he did not teach us one thing about apt. He only taught us about DPKG. So I get out there and I start downloading, I go to the search, where's wine? I find the actual package, I download it to my system, and I get on there and I install it. And it does not install whatsoever. Instead, it gives me this list and it says, hey, you're missing all these dependencies. Let's take a look right here. This package depends, red, recommends, suggest, or enhances gray. Well, depends. This is required. And look at the list right here. So when I get on my system, it says, hey, you can't install this. You need this. So I wind up making a list. And then I'm like, okay, I go out there, I do my research. I find all of these files where they're located on the internet. I download them and then I get ready. I'm going to install it. So I install the first one. Let's just pick one. I don't know. There we go. All right. So I just picked IP route and then look what it did. Depends. Okay. I'll click on one of those. All right. It needs this. Click on that. It needs this. Okay. Geez, it needs that. So y'all can see what I ran into. I spent hours, days just downloading. So I quit going down the list. I just picked one. And then I would trace all the way down and then finally get that one piece of software. And then I just moved to the next one on the list and I would have to track it down. It was horrible. In the end, I did not get it running. I thought I was going to probably fail the class because I can't remember, it was worth a huge amount. So I actually have to bring my desktop in there, hook it up, and then I give my presentation on how I failed the project. That was it. And I thought I was done. And then after the end of it, my professor started laughing. And he said, that's what I thought would happen. So I actually got an A on the project. He was very, very impressed with how far I actually tracked everything down and how far I got in the project, even though didn't actually successfully do that. And they named that program correctly, wine, not in like wine that you drink, but it cries all the time. It whines because when you try to get software, it just creates this huge error logs. And that is where I learned dev/null. Because when you turn it on, it would just fill the screen up with all these error messages. And I'd just send it to dev/null. So that way I could see at least what's going on in there. So luckily, y'all don't have to go through that. Isn't that nice? Back up here. All right, so going back to apt, as I told you before, apt get, and then you had, basically it was apt dash, if you want to think about it. You had to memorize kind of all of these secondary items right here, and it just wasn't very intuitive. But now they came out with just the single apt, and some of it's new, some of it is literally just calling some of these old commands, only you don't have to memorize it. It's so much easier if you want to install. Now it's just apt install. And then they broke kind of the convention because it isn't like double dashes, right? That's one of the things I always want to do, like the double dashes and stuff, but it doesn't have that. Now it does have for some of the additional options that we'll see here in a second. And then of course, right here, we have the file. So this is that pointer file. So this is going to have all the pointers to the different repositories that are out there. And of course, it kind of has a long list by default. A lot of them are actually commented out, kind of you can turn them on and off right here. But most of the time, you are good with just the default configuration that it comes with there. Now, when you want to install something, you need to do one thing first, and that is that sudo apt update. So what that does, it forces that list to actually be updated with all the newest software. And then when you want to install the software, then you actually run the install. Now, here's one of the kind of the big attractors when it comes to Linux, is the fact that you can see right here, I'm using sudo, and then I'm doing apt install, and then I'm installing the newest version of sudo. So Linux is really cool, and then it tracks. So like you're using that software, so it kind of flags it, and it doesn't get rid of it. Instead, it downloads that new copy. And then when it's done, it then realizes there's a newer copy on here. So I'm going to use the new copy, and the old copy, I'm not going to use it anymore. This is why a lot of your servers run on Linux, because there are very, very few times that when you install software, when you restart a service, you don't have to restart the machine. Now, there are I've had to do it once, I think, in my whole entire life where I had to restart the machine. But now I installed the software and it's still running. It's running on the old copies, but for some reason it had to have a reboot. But it's very, very rare. Most of the time, the system will update all the software and just pick right up with that new software package without any type of reboot. All right, now on that apt list, it's kind of broken down into the type and then so it'll be the type of package that it is. Oftentimes it's, well, not often, it's going to be a deb or a deb source right here. And then it's going to have this URI that points to the location of the actual server. And then you have the distribution. So that would be, what was ours? Can anybody remember what ours was? I've lost it already. Was it Noble? Noble, yeah. I haven't updated. It's jammy in my office, so. Okay, yeah, that's no big deal. Just Noble, maybe I think it was on the list. It was higher up there, so it's just a newer version. And then you've got these components, and we'll break down those components kind of on the other side right here. So here's the component section, and then here's the actual kind of what it looks like here. So you can see you have the type, the URL right here, the distribution there, and then we have our components broken down. So you can see the main, that is going to be software from Ubuntu's official repo, so completely supported, maintained by them. Then you see you've got restricted. So this is software that's not Ubuntu, but they do support it. Then you've got Universe. So this is community maintained. This is kind of where you have to be careful, right? Because it's all community. You don't really know what you're getting right there. So it's truly open source software. Then you got the Multiverse, and that is, it's not open source software, kind of the same as this one right here, but this one up here is still maintained by Ubuntu. So this one is open source software and it is unsupported by Ubuntu whatsoever. So you have to pay for this one, and this one you have to pay for too. While this is free and this one is free. So kind of understand the differences there. Now, here is just a summary for all of this. So apt update, again, you're going to run that first before you install anything. Then you have apt upgrade right here. So that right there, you can give it, if you don't want to update everything and kind of give it a list of packages or just one, it's going to upgrade just the one and that's it. Or if you do the apt full upgrade, then that's going to upgrade everything that's on your system. And then you have apt install. So that's going to allow you to install a single or multiple files if you want. And then you've got apt remove here. So that's going to remove the packages. This one right here is going to leave a lot of stuff behind. So you have apt purge. So you can see these configuration files that are left behind. If you're sure that you don't want to get rid of them, you can do apt purge. It's just a little bit more thorough than apt remove. Now, the last one here, this apt auto remove. So these are dependencies. So Linux is smart enough to know, like it keeps track of the dependency software that it downloads when it's needed for a program to run. And it also keeps track of what program is running it. So if you uninstall a piece of software and then Linux realizes that there's no other major piece of software that runs those dependencies, then it will let you know when you are done, and it will tell you to actually run apt auto remove at the end of it, because it says these dependencies are no longer used. You can free up some disk space. So you need to just run apt auto remove with no arguments, and then it just cleans up your system of all of those software packages that are no longer needed. Now, if we want to see a list of software that is available, you can do apt list and see that it's available, installed, and upgradable. So if we run this, if I did apt list, you can see it did that. It did it pretty fast, but let's actually see what it's returning here. So we pipe it to WC-L, and that was 77,620 packages of software.
What's the difference between apt update and apt upgrade?
Update is going to update the local cache. So in other words, all that is a list of software. So it goes out there and finds out what's new. And then it just has a file with all of that software in a list. So your system now knows about it. Now, upgrade will actually go out there and download the software to your system. So update does not get you any new software. You can think of it as a text document of what's out there and available. Good question. Okay.
you just ran update with no arguments, would it update all of your installed packages?
No, remember, updates just the list. Like,
Or, I'm
let's,
sorry, I meant upgrade.
yes,
Okay.
yes, it will. So let's just apt, we'll put it over here on the side. Hang on. Gotta run sudo, apt update. This is why you have to remember that password, which I rarely do, but I'll go through enough of them. We'll figure it out there. Let's see, it may actually be done. Right there. Okay, so now it's telling you right here that, yeah, 160 packages can be upgraded. And if you want to upgrade them all, run that command. Apt -- or apt list -- upgradable. So then it's just going to download all the newest stuff that's out there. And then if you only want to see one, of course, you can run apt list and give it a name. It's going to run that. If you don't want like everything that's out there and available, you can do the -- installed. So it's going to show you only everything that is installed on your system. So we can run apt list -- installed. So here's everything that's on my system. And note, see at the end, installed, installed, installed. That's important for y'all to pick up. And if I wanted to see what was upgradable, then here's a list of everything, and you can actually see it's marked right here. These are mine's old version of that, so I need to actually run it and upgrade all of that software on my system there. Then we got apt search, so we can run that. So if we did apt search and let's search for HTOP, it wasn't actually installed on there. So now we have kind of all the things that deal with HTOP. There's different versions out there, but here is actual HTOP right there. And so that right there, it's kind of replaces the top command that's on our system, which I can't remember. Have we covered that? I think it's actually in the next lecture that I covered top on that. We covered PS in here to see our processes. Top is a different version of that, which we'll cover next time. And then we have apt show. I like this command right here. This is where you're going to get a lot more information on your system right here. So you can see you can get a whole lot. You even get a description of what's on here. But one thing that you do not get from here is it actually installed or not? But what's cool is you can actually see, okay, how much space is it going to take up if I did install it on here? So it'll give you that information. Now, I don't want you to be confused and always can't remember the command here, but we'll look it up real fast. Let's see, hold, install, configure, purge. I'm going to miss it. Must have missed it. Extract. Nope, here it is. It's either maybe status, thinking it's status here. So let's try that. Let's remember status and search if it's not yet, but I'm pretty sure it's status. So if we did dpkg and then we did status, what you working -- status, and then htop. Okay, so it's not installed. Let's do sudo. Okay, yeah, this right here. So this is where you have to be careful when it comes to your exam, because I'm going to give you some questions on this. So this looks very, very familiar to this right here. But note this one right here actually has the status that's in there. Installed, okay, installed. So it was marked for installed and it was actually installed. So don't get that output confused with this output from show. So you got show and status. Show is just showing you the application status. And you saw right here, it required for it to actually be installed. It wouldn't just, because DPKG has no access to that repository whatsoever. This is just if you download the software and you want to install it. So you have to have all the stuff in order for DPKG to work. Okay, now, as you can see right here, so we just talked about how to upgrade software. Well, what if we want to upgrade the whole entire OS? Well, we can do that, but there's some things we gotta make sure is you want to keep up with this. In other words, if you have, like if you download the version, then another version, and then another version comes out, you don't want to skip that middle version, as these are meant to be upgraded from the whatever the next step up is what you should upgrade. If you wind up skipping 2 or 3 of them, it may work as far as like letting you, but more than likely you're going to get some errors. So you just want to kind of do the stair step process. So if you got behind 3 of them, then do each 3 in order. Now, as you can see, there's 2 different methods right here. So whatever flavor of Linux you are running, what you want to do first is look up and see if they have an official way of upgrading instead of doing a universal method. So Debian has its own method, which works great on a Debian system. But if you have a system that's based off of Debian and it is not Debian itself, then go ahead and look up. So Ubuntu is based off of Debian, but they have an official one. And a lot of the times your configuration file changes, this method right here will ruin them. So they have it specifically for their custom stuff that they have, and it's going to preserve those configuration files for you. So when you update the system, you want it to be as like up to date as possible. So we have the same rules, sudo apt update. So that way it knows all the software. You want to get all the software that's out there. And then you want to auto remove to take everything that's not being used by your system. And then you actually want to do that upgrade. And of course, it needs to be that stair step again. So make sure you get the next step up there. Now, one of the things that does happen, especially in this right here, is you saw that software repository. And if we go back and take a look, matter of fact, they don't even have that anymore. It's just .archive. But you can see like this is specific to Ubuntu, right? So this is one of those configuration files that definitely would probably get ruined if you use the Debian method. But even sometimes when you're upgrading using their method, it could mess up. So this is one of the things you kind of want to go back and check to make sure that this right here was updated, because this is the code name that's going to tell it which software to actually go out there and point. So that's going to change. For instance, mine is Jammy in there. If I update to the next one, it was probably going to be, anybody remember the name again? What is it? Okay, Noble. Yeah. So if this thing still says Jammy after I update my Office, then I need to go through here and edit these entries right here to actually point them to Noble. Anybody know a good utility to make quick work of that? What? Said yes. Say it was confidence. Said that's a good program. We just covered it right there. So let's see right here. In this case, it would be searching for Xenal. Change it to Bionic right there. So that was the one that came before Bionic. So we can do the sed-i. And of course, we have to do sudo because root owns this thing and we can't just edit it on the fly. So it's going to search for that and replace all of those instances with Bionic. And then boom, our whole entire source list is now up to date for us. All right, there are many methods of downloading files off the internet. I'm just going to cover one, wget right here. So it kind of allows us to download files that are hosted FTP or websites. And then I give us a quick example right here. I like this example, not because it's really usable by us as far as if we only have the terminal, but a lot of people, if you try to look for Chrome on an actual like GUI full-blown version of it, you're not going to find it. It's Chromium. If you want the actual official Chrome, then you can go to Google's website. Here's the actual address here. And this should cause an actual problem. And that's one of the reasons why I like this one right here. So let's see if we can cause an issue. Paste it in there, wget, here's the web address. I'm going to hit enter and it's going to go out there and try to download it. And did it actually? Yeah, it actually did it. Bummer. In my Office, this thing gives a whole bunch of errors in here and it's dependency errors, but probably because I did the update while ago, it grabbed them. So actually, no, that just downloaded. I'm getting ahead of myself. We're probably still going to get some errors. All right, LS. So that downloaded it to my system somewhere. Should be Google Chrome. There it is right here. So there's the .deb package that we download. So let's go ahead and use dpkg. Let's do sudo and then do -- install. And then give it the actual .deb package here. Now let's hit enter and we should get some problems. Yep, there's a problem right there. It's already kind of doesn't know what to do here. Give it a second. And now we got these howevers. However, so it did work in some places. However, it didn't have this. It didn't, have this package, and this package right here. So I put in here what you can actually do. And DPKG has no way of dealing with this whatsoever. But they recognize this can be a problem. So they built it right into apt here. And that is apt fix broken dash install. I have to make sure the dash is right. I just put this in here. So if we did sudo apt dash fix broken install. Let's see if that works. The dash, maybe it's just install. Yeah, sorry about that. I'll have to update that. So now it's saying, okay, we found these packages and then, here's the suggested, the recommended, but if I just do the default, here's what it's actually going to grab for me right here. So I'm going to go ahead and say, yes, I want that. And I meant to go in there and actually show you if we would have done dpkg list and reference the Google Chrome, it would have been I, and then it would have been you in there. It would have had an error of unpacked. So it wasn't completely unpacked. So unfortunately, I forgot to do that before we got in there, so we can't see it. So now if I wind up, we can do, should have looked up there at the very, very top. There should be the package name somewhere in here. Yeah, right here, unpacking Google Chrome stable. So I'm just going to copy that. And then if we go in here and do dp ekg list, and then give it our Google Chrome. Like I said, it would have said, and that second I, it would have been a U, which was unpacked right there. Kind of give you some information, but now it's installed. Or we can do apt, what is it? It's not search. I don't think list, maybe, yeah, it is list. List will give us the information. So let's pop that in there. Nope, it's not dash. Told you it gets me every time. Now you can see it also shows the installed right there. And of course, if we did the dpkg status, it would also show that it's installed. So there's multiple ways to check to see if it's installed right there. You just kind of pick your method that you like more than the others. All right. Couple of things actually that I want to point out here is by downloading that, it actually added to our repository. So if we, let's go ahead and we'll cd into /etc. I think it's apt. And then we've got our, we'll just go there to that one, do an ls right here. So you can see we've got a sources list and then a sources list.d. If we were to cat out that sources list, sources list. Isn't there more? Did they move it all to sources.list.d? Let me cat that out. Let's see. ls sources list.d. Nope, it only has that. I'm at a loss. I just did this in my office right here. Make sure I have the go back to the slide, make sure I'm not getting things confused. Sources.list, that should be it. Oh, yep, it has moved. Okay, so yeah, all right, they moved it to ubuntu.sources right here. Cool. That's amazing. I have Jammy in my office, and now Noble has actually moved it there. So if we cd into sources.list, we'll do an LL on that. So now Ubuntu has actually moved their configuration file to here. So on mine, it only had this. So the whole point of this was to show you that this directory, the sources list.d, is being read. And so here's Google's version right there that it added in that list. And so here's the actual website that it's pointing to get that, the newer version. So now that that is in there, anytime I run the sudo apt update, it's going to wind up hitting the Google repository as well. So I've just added that repository. So understand though, there's going to be lots of places on the internet that says, hey, add my repository to get this new piece of software. That's up to you to choose whether if you actually trust them or not, because they could have a whole list of viruses in there. And then when you run your system, it's going to update. They could even have a list of some of the same software that is legitimate. And then when you update, it's hitting that. And so even though you don't actually, you're not typing to install it itself, it's getting updates from that repository. So you just have to be really, really careful, make sure that you trust them. And if you don't, then just don't do it whatsoever. Now, one other thing that I wanted to point out, let's see, we go CD here, let's CD and /Etsy. What is it? It's the profile, never mind. Well, /Etsy profile. Okay, so here is that global configuration, Etsy profile right here. And of course, it's mainly pointing to other things. It's the one that points to kind of the these files right here loading up. It's creating the PS1 prompt for us there. And then right here is the point I wanted to show y'all right here. So can't make that any larger. That's a bummer. All right, so somebody walk me through this. What is that line? Can y'all actually see it right there? If -d Etsy profile.d. So what's it checking right there? Yes. Okay. So it's checking for its existence. And if it is a directory, then we got for in Etsy profile.d star.sh. What's that do? Sorry, what? Yes, great, great. So it's checking the directory. It actually gave an absolute file path right there. And then it's saying any file that ends with the .sh, then of course I is going to get that. Then we've got this right here. It's checking to make sure that that variable is readable. And if it is, what is it doing here? I know that's hard for y'all to read. It has a dot, space, and $I. So what's it doing?
It's executing the current iteration, the current file that it's known.
Close, close. The execute is probably not a good way to do it. Remember, source. Execute means you're gonna you're running a script. Source is you're loading it into memory. So right here, it's sourcing the file that it found. So this is a configuration file. So if we have custom configuration files, it is not a good idea to put them in here. Because when we upgrade the operating system, if there was any changes to this configuration file, do you think they would preserve those changes or would they just overwrite the file? Yeah, they're not going to worry. That's too much trouble. So they're going to overwrite this file. So all of your custom configuration that you did, maybe you did a UMass that was in here that you wanted to be globally applied. Bad idea to put it in here. Good idea to create your own configuration file, put it into profile.d with a .sh extension. Now, when this file gets overwritten, it's never going to overwrite anything that's in the profile.d directory right there. So now you've preserved all of your custom configuration files. I'm going to add this coverage in, and I haven't done it. You've got unset I here. So what is really interesting and kind of the difference between running a script versus sourcing a script. I have a graph in here. If you look at the graph, when you source something, it stays in the same shell. So if this is sourced, this unset I here, or this script right here, and then we have this I variable right here that's being sourced. In other words, it's actually in the same shell. So that can affect things that are in the shell we're working in. Versus if we run a script, it then spawns a subshell, and then we can create any variable we want. We don't have to worry about it. So that's kind of the two differences of when you might want to source something versus when you might want to run it as a script right here. So that's why in this case, because it's being sourced, they had to unset I because they didn't want I having any meaning in the shell whatsoever there. All right, so now let's take a look here. I have a list of software, and this is just more for fun right here. So there are alternatives to the same exact software that we use out there. And some of them, obviously, they're more modern, but you have the problem when you update with a more modern version that's not standard is we don't know if someone's going to upkeep it. For example, I like to replace LS with a program called Exa. And Exa is really, really cool. It actually would do, like if you had a Git repository that's being cloned, it would literally have all the icons for Git files and stuff. So text files, it had a nice little icon for it. Everything is beautifully color coded. But when I actually went to install it this time, I noticed that it hadn't been updated, and I looked up and it's no longer maintained. So it went away. Now, I can't remember, is like ZEA is the newest one, but because it's new, it hasn't hit all the repositories. And I think it is on Cargo. Yeah, it's on Cargo. And there are some other workarounds. You can get it into the repository, but again, kind of a lot of work. So I'm not going to cover that one, unfortunately, because it's such a good program. But there's another one called BAT out here. So if I run sudo apt and then BAT, invalid operation, sudo, I need to install, sudo apt install. So go out there, it's telling me that I found it right here. Do I want to install it? We'll say yes, install the thing. So boom, now I got it. Now we'll do this dot bash rc. So you can see bash rc file right here. But if I bat the dot bash rc, and it may not work. Okay, so this is one of the other annoying things because there's something similar to bat that's out there. Unfortunately, we can't use bat. We have to use batcat. Okay, so now that batcat is working right here, you can see what it did is, it actually put our file name up there, it put some nice numbering right here, and check this out. It actually understands the language that we're writing in, so it actually does syntax highlighting for us, and we didn't have to do anything. So nice right here. And it also knows, let's see, maybe Etsy profile is short enough. So anybody remember how to bring this to the foreground? Because I made a mistake. This is a comprehensive exam at the moment. FG. All right, good job. All right, Q. That's what I should have done, not actually like shutting it down with Control Z. Now, so if I did batcat on, let's say, Etsy profile, I think that may be short enough for us. I don't know. Nope, it's not. See, do I have a short file? Yeah, practice.txt here. So we'll do batcat on practice.txt. See what it did? What's the difference? Anybody recognize the difference that it did for us, which is so cool? What's the difference in my screen? Okay, so you can see right here. So if I did this, typed in gibberish, you can see right here, I can still see my cat, right? That cat here. Okay. You see the other ones that I did on the larger files? No, you don't. So batcat knows how big your screen is. And then if it's small enough to fit on the screen, then it'll just send it to standard out. If it's not, then it sends it to a pager. And so sends it to less for us there. And so then so we don't even have to worry, because you remember, like, if I wanted to do this, I would have to do, okay, if it's a large file, I need to open less. If it's a small file, then I can open cat. Well, batcat just determines for us. We don't actually have to do that. Now, I don't want to have to type batcat all the time here. So let's take a look at something. So let's open up that bash rc file again. Yeah, there it is, batcat. I'll do Shift G to get to the end here, and check this out. What's this one telling me?
Source for the aliases file.
Yes.
If it
So,
exists.
yeah, if it exists, source the bash's alias file. Well, mine doesn't exist. So let's go over here, Shift CZ, and now let's go ahead and vim, paste that in. Now we'll do I for insert, alias, and we're going to alias ls, and we're going to set it equal to batcat. Or not ls. I don't want to do that. Cat command. escape, Shift ZZ to save it. And now if I type the cat command, should it work? All right, so source the .bash rc file here. And now if I type in cat on .bash rc, that cat has now overtaken cat. So now I don't have to actually type that in. And then this is what's cool. The batcat command, because it knew people was going to do this, if you actually open up the man page, all of the options are the same or extended. So my exa command that I used to run, matter of fact, I can probably just to show you sudo apt install exa. Yeah, no, it's just on my system. You can't even find it anymore. And you can see right here, the replacement is EZA. Now, I could not install that on there, but it's strange that it knows it. I was on an older system, and that older system did not have that software package on there. Now EZA is on because I'm on Noble. So if you're on Jammy like me, you don't have access to this. So now if I said EZA, and then we can do -L, now you can see you get this nice, pretty output right there. I wonder if it has icons. It's a font problem. You have to figure out what font, but it will actually do like a little text document here icon if you have the right font installed. I don't know what it is. And what's cool about that is if I go back over here to Vim alias O, and then I alias ls equal, was it EZA? EZA. All right, escape Shift ZZ, and then we want to source it. Now, if I said E or ls and did -L, you can see because it uses the same options that it works perfectly there. And then of course, it's probably going to have lots of extended options. Another thing, sudo apt install tldr. This one's a funny one. Okay, tldr dpkg. TLDR home decor directory. This one may actually require some extra configuration there. Let me check, run the install, make sure it did install correctly. Yep, installed correctly. Yep, it probably needs some extra, like right here, it looks like there may be a missing directory. Some of these you actually do have to kind of play with and figure out what's one of them. There is a one written in Rust, and it's TELDEER, and it's a little bit better version of this. And the reason why they named it right there is because if you tried to pronounce this, it'd be Tildeer. And so they named theirs Tildeer, just to be funny. But this is really cool because it will give you a condensed version that's user-friendly and it's community maintained. So if you want to know a quick syntax, it will give you a quick syntax that's so readable. But the only downside to it is it's very, very limited. It doesn't have much. All right, I think that hit everything. Does anybody have any question? Another thing that is cool, if you don't have it, sudo apt install. I love this command right here. That right there. So if you want to kind of see your directory in a hierarchy type format there, tree works really, really nice for that. So what you got?
So earlier in the session, we were learning about setting the user flag and group flag for files. I tried, because I'm used to it before, I tried setting the user flag for root on APT, or user flag for APT, user flag is follow, right? Column for full. No, I'm not following. You know, the user flag, UID?
Yes. So you're trying to make it where you own it?
No, UID makes it where you use it.
Okay, like the password file, sorry. Yeah, the set user ID. Yeah. So what was your question about it?
Is it possible to set it where your user takes on the root privileges automatically.
Yeah, that would be set UID, that command right there where you give the special permissions, where you put a fork on it in front of the permission set. I have not tried that. I don't know if that would work. I would assume it would because password works. Yeah, if you set that on that, it should take on the root permissions basically when you run that, so you wouldn't have to do sudo. That's a cool question. I've never done it. I'm going to play with that now. Yes, thank you. Yes, you can use Homebrew, and I'm glad you said that, as things are kind of out of order here a little bit. So when it comes to this side of things, this is where yours stops right here, because this is Ubuntu specific right here. So when it comes to, like you said, Homebrew is an option, but of course the commands are going to be different. We're going to cover creating users. That'd be completely different, as Homebrew is like for installing software. When it comes to the exam though, just to ease your mind, you have two options. One is I will quickly work with you if you let me email me, and we'll set you up a system in here. The downside of that is you have to be here to be able to do that. We also have in 330, there's some Linux machines that are dual boot. If you'd like to do that, they're Mint machines. You can use one of those. I guess the second alternative to those two is I have a Mac version that's out there, and it's basically like a normal exam, only it's open book, like the final will be, where you can't complete it on your system. You're just going to have to answer the questions on there. Now, because you're not actually having to complete the stuff on the system, as that takes time, I throw in a few more extra questions on there that you have to think a little bit more about versus, people that are having to do this on their system in the regular version. So I'll talk more about that the next time. Any other questions?
So we talked about the apt-fix-broken install.
Yes.
So just to clarify, that will go through all of your installed packages, and for each installed package, go through its dependencies and just make sure to download it.
If something is wrong with it. So, it flags like, okay, this installation didn't work. So it goes through and figures out, okay, here's the software packages. There's, that flag is something wrong with it. And we'll go through and try to fix them if it can.
So that flag, is it created whenever you first attempt to install something and then it fails for some reason?
Yes, if it's failed, and I should have showed you with the DPKG, it would have had the flag of you in there. And so it knows, and then apt would also know, but apt, they didn't really throw that for apt because apt's going to figure it out anyway. So,
Okay.
yeah. All right, great question. Anybody else? All right. All right, I love this class right here. This is a fun class. All right, y'all are good to go. I will see you next Tuesday.